Is the Canon EOS R1 going to have a much lower resolution than 30 megapixels? Or did we misread yesterday's story about the Canon EOS R1 having a much lower resolution than many think? Stick around after this short message as we dig deeper into what the story really communicates, and perhaps, just perhaps, we won't be as shocked as yesterday. But first, subscribe to this channel for a chance to win a Canon EOS R5. I'll be giving one away to one lucky subscriber once this channel reaches 100,000 subscribers. Anyone above the age of 18 with a valid mailing address is eligible. Additional terms and conditions are linked in the description down below. Yesterday, Canon rumors confirmed that the EOS R1 would come out before the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, but Canon rumors went further, stating, "We have seen hints over the past few months that the EOS R1 will not shoot 8K video, which puts the resolution below the 45 megapixels of the Canon EOS R5. What Canon rumors is saying here is that the Canon EOS R1, well, it won't shoot 8K video. The story didn't say anything about resolution. Here, have another look. We've seen hints over the last few months that the EOS R1 will not shoot 8K video. But this next phrase is the key. This is where Canon rumors infers or draws the conclusion, if it doesn't have 8K, it will therefore have a resolution under 45 megapixels. Canon rumors' first assumption is that because it can't do 8K video, therefore the resolution must be under 45 megapixels. So you might be wondering why. Well, with stills hybrid cameras like the Canon EOS R5, the R5C, the Nikon Z8, and the Nikon Z9, 40 megapixels is needed for 8K UHD, and 45 megapixels is needed for 8K DCI. Okay, so that assumption makes sense, but again, does not having 8K video mean that the camera is incapable of having a sensor resolution of 45 megapixels or even higher? Well, take a look at this next quote. We've also been told that the Canon EOS R1 will have, and notice that this is in quotes, less resolution than many think. And one of the reasons why the article is shocking is because we've been primed for many years, for better or worse, to think that the Canon EOS R1 is going to have 45 megapixels, that it will be the master of everything, the jack of all trades. Some earlier stories, or shall I say conjecture, have even suggested that the Canon EOS R1 would have a resolution of 85 megapixels. Have a look at this comment by Suche Das. The leak says, less megapixels than many think, which is vague, but what is more likely is that it means a lower megapixel count than the wild and unsubstantiated rumors of 60 and 85 megapixels. Okay, so could Canon release the Canon EOS R1 with a resolution of, let's say, 45 or 50 megapixels and do so without releasing a camera with 8K video? What do you think? Well, I know what you think because I conducted a poll yesterday. I asked what you thought the R1's resolution would be. Only 7% believed that the R1 would be stuck between 24 and 26 megapixels, and slightly more of you think that the resolution of the R1 is going to fall between 28 and 32 megapixels. That leaves 16% of you thinking that the resolution of the Canon EOS R1 is going to be between 24 and 32 megapixels. 26% expect a resolution between 32 and 36 megapixels, but despite the post by Canon rumors yesterday, the vast majority of you, 57% of you, expect a resolution of 45 megapixels or more. So why do so many people expect that the Canon EOS R1 then is going to have a resolution of 45 megapixels or more, despite Canon rumors coming out and saying that it won't? Well, all we have to do is look at the Canon EOS R5, the R5C, or the Nikon Z8. Each of these cameras can do 8K video up to 30 frames per second. The Nikon Z8 doing 8K up to 60 frames per second, and each one of these cameras, well, they have a 45 megapixel sensor. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. They're not flagship mirrorless cameras, but the Nikon Z9 is. You see, the Nikon Z9 has a 45 megapixel sensor, and it's capable of doing video at 8K up to 30, actually, no, let me correct that, up to 60 frames per second. And then, of course, there's the Sony Alpha 1. It has a 50 megapixel resolution higher than that of the previous cameras mentioned, and can do 8K video, although not as good as the Nikon Z9. This tells us that people aren't willing to believe that the Canon EOS R1 isn't going to match the competition, the Sony Alpha 1, the Nikon Z9, or even the Nikon Z8, the competition after several years. To sum things up, Canon rumors said that the Canon EOS R1 will not do 8K video, and it will have less resolution than many think. Everything else is a forecast. Everything else is conjecture. We have very few specifications in this post, and that's why I think the vast majority of my viewers still expect a resolution of 45 megapixels or more. But it's important to keep in mind that this Canon rumors story is rated as a CR3. And to quote Canon rumors, this rating is our highest given and has broad consensus from all of our known sources. It's very rare that a CR3 rumor doesn't come to fruition in some form or another. So while the story doesn't talk about the resolution, I don't think we're going to see a resolution on the Canon EOS R1, and this is just my opinion, this is just my forecast, it doesn't come from any leaked specifications. I think that the Canon EOS R1 is going to have a resolution somewhere between 32 and 36 megapixels, and I think that got, based on the poll results, only about, 26 or 29%? It's important to understand that the 1 series camera is Canon's ultimate EOS camera, making way for a new era in autofocus speed, accuracy, and precision, offering the highest level of performance an EOS camera has ever possessed. The 1 series changes the game for serious photographers around the world, boasting a powerful new full-frame CMOS sensor combined with a cutting-edge new digic image processor for truly outstanding stills and video. And those aren't my words, those are Canon's words. And this is what we should keep in mind. The reason why I read you this off Canon's website was to kind of put things into perspective, to look at the scenarios and use cases that the 1 series camera is designed for. And historically, going way, way back, we can see that the 1 series was Canon's flagship camera, but it was designed for a very specific niche market, and that was sports and fast action photography. And to get a resolution between 32 and 36 megapixels, in my view, isn't necessarily a bad thing for those use cases and scenarios. What it means is slightly larger pixel sizes allowing more light and providing less noise, which is something that everybody wants. But with a resolution bump of two 32 or 36 megapixels from the current 24.5 or 20 megapixels on the 1DX Mark III, I was getting confused with the R3. Well, that's a huge boost, and what that allows for is cropping, which is very handy when you're trying to capture large and fast-moving subjects. Canon's had 6 years to develop, design, and produce the Canon EOS R1. They've had 4 years since the EOS 1DX Mark III came out, and they've had a good 3 years since the Sony Alpha 1 came out, 2 years since the Nikon Z9. They've had plenty of time to take a look at the competition. They've had plenty of time to seek feedback from customers that purchased the Canon EOS R3. This camera is designed for sports and fast action photographers, and when I first started getting wind of rumors that this camera would have a 45 megapixel sensor, or 50 or 60, or even 85 megapixels as that one story, forecast, I had trouble believing it because it went against everything I understood of what a 1 series camera would be. But then Nikon went ahead and released the Nikon Z9, and it has 45.7 megapixels, 8K video up to 60 frames per second, the ability to shoot 20 frames per second lossless RAW with a bandwidth of 1.2 gigabytes per second. It truly is their flagship mirrorless camera. It's a very powerful camera. So once we started to get confirmation from the competition that, hey, look, the competition can do anywhere from 45 to 50 at 20 to 30 frames per second. Now, there are some caveats with a Sony at 30 frames per second. We're talking JPEG, but the Nikon Z9 is 20 frames per second lossless RAW, 1.2 gigabytes per second. Could it be, perhaps, that the Canon EOS R1 is being designed not for being the master of everything, being the best camera for stills and video, but is being aimed at photographers, specifically sports and fast action photographers where 8K video isn't essential? Could it be that this camera could have anywhere from 32 to 36 megapixels, and while still being able to do video, that would give us 8K oversampled 4K? That would give us at least 7K oversampled 4K, maybe even 7.2, 7.3, or 7.4K oversampled 4K. giving us as good resolution that we get with a Canon EOS R5, the R5C, or even the Nikon Z8 and Z9. What do you think? Are you still disappointed? I saw quite a few people that were disappointed by yesterday's news, but keep in mind that we have a huge amount of cameras coming out this year. If you're thinking of switching to Sony, Nikon, or any other camera manufacturer, what I recommend is a bit of caution here, because we're expecting in the first half of 2024, and let's just say in 2024, this is what we're expecting: the Canon EOS R1, the Canon EOS R5, the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, a bunch of Nikon cameras, the Nikon Z6 Mark III, a variant of the Nikon Z9 also designed for the Olympics. We've got the Sony A9 Mark III, which should start shipping on February the 21st, along with a series of vlogging as well as cinema cameras, FX cameras, and we've still got many more to come. There's Panasonic are looking to refresh. It's been 5 years since we got the S1, the S1R, and almost 5 years since we got the S1H. There's an awful lot of cameras coming out this year, so if you're disappointed by this news and don't want to wait any longer for the R5 Mark II, you're not happy about the R1, at least wait another 5 or 6 months, because you're going to see a lot from the competition. Don't make a bold and rash decision now, unless, of course, you're interested in some of those really incredible deals out right now, because I got to admit, it's tempting. I do need a second camera, and there's so many incredible deals on right now. $500 off the Canon EOS R5, the R5C, and we're seeing deals on a whole plethora of cameras, something like $1,500 off different variants of the Panasonic S1H. We're seeing deals off Nikon cameras. We're seeing deals $1,000 off the Canon EOS R3, a camera we talked about in this video. And if you're interested in purchasing any of these camera gear, anything I've mentioned in this video, and if you're looking at purchasing from Adorama, B&H, or Amazon.com, then please consider using my affiliate links down below, these ones right here, because I get a small commission back, and it really does go to help this channel. It's going to allow me to purchase the Canon EOS R1. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a little bit on the fence with it right now based on these specs, because if it is really designed at sports and fast action photographers, of which I'm not, and it doesn't have that great in terms of video capabilities, then what that tells me is that the R5 Mark II is going to get a whole lot more. The Canon EOS R5C Mark II is going to do better, and those cameras might make more sense, and the R1 might be more of a paperweight for me, but there's also other lenses. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest regarding the Canon EOS R1, the R5 Mark II, what Sony's going to be doing, Nikon, Pentax, you name it, then go ahead and subscribe, and also follow me on X, because all those stories that aren't quite big enough to have their own separate video, I'm always tweeting out information, pricing, and other news stories, such as I believe there's a firmware update in the works. I tweeted about it just a few hours ago. For Sony, we don't know if it's for all cameras or just the Alpha 1 and the A7S III. So if you're a Sony customer, you might want to take a look at that tweet. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great week, and we'll see you again soon.